Hello everyone, Andrew Reed here, and today we're going to talk about the PLTC Survival Guide. So here is 7 strategies that I use to be a first-time bar exam passer in British Columbia, Canada. Okay, so let's go ahead and just dive right in. Strategy number 1. So if the reading material is available online, as it is in British Columbia, or you can get access to that reading material otherwise, read that material before the PLTC even starts. So give yourself a few weeks for this and then just read it cover to cover. It is dry material, but this will give you a bit of a foundation so that you're using the readings and classes during the PLTC as reinforcement instead of first-time exposure. So a little bit of familiarity is of great comfort during the extremely stressful onslaught of information that is PLTC. Okay, so that's strategy number 1. Read in advance as much as you can. Strategy number 2. Follow the instructions exactly. So the instructor is going to give instructions. The PLTC, whether they use Brightspace or whatever, is going to provide instructions. Follow those exactly. Do not go above and beyond. It's not necessary. It is not helpful. Seek clarification when you need it from the instructor, from whomever, because there's no wiggle room to miss a deadline. None. Don't hesitate to reach out for a clarification. So this includes your colleagues in the class. Chances are, if you have a question, they have a question, and they've already asked and had it answered. So, and they will not hesitate to reach out to you either. They're going to reach out to you and say, hey, do you know the answer to this? And you're all helping each other. It's not a competition. So use your resources. In this case, your resource is your classmate, your instructor, and follow the instructions of PLTC exactly, especially for the assessments and the assignments that they give you. They will provide exact instructions. You do not go beyond these instructions. Number 3, strategy 3, speak out at least once in class, every day. So they ask these group questions, or like, who knows the answer to this? And you will put your hand up for at least 1 or 2 of those and answer one. And on this note, never miss or be late to class. Preferably be there 5 minutes early. So the reason why, if you are a borderline fail in one of your assessments, in one of your exams, the Law Society has the discretion to give you credit for your dedication and participation to bump you over the fail line. And this bump is known as an adjudicated pass. And it is based on your dedication and participation during the program, amongst other criteria that I'm not privy to. And so my strategy to make sure that if I needed an adjudicated pass, I want to make sure that I was set up to get it. So at least once per every class, raise my hand. Never late, never miss class, never put any other priority above the class. It wasn't necessary for me. Everybody has different life circumstances, so maybe it is necessary, but ideally avoid that as much as possible. Work with your instructor. You know, if you do have to miss class for some reason, make sure it's a very important one. Otherwise, even if you're sick, you can just sit there in a blanket and do your Zoom class because, well, as of right now, they're all on Zoom. Not sure what the future holds. Strategy number 4, brutal feedback. So you might get brutal feedback on the assignments. So this is before the graded assessments. You do an assignment and they will give you feedback. They might even tell you what you would have done had it been graded. Probably won't look that great. For the most part, those results are not great, especially in contract drafting. So it might even have you questioning your ability to be a good lawyer. Don't panic when you get the brutal feedback. Literally incorporate every bit of the feedback into the actual assessment. Bring the feedback to the assessment if they allow it, and make sure that you don't repeat your mistakes that you did on the assignment. So to be candid, on my first assignment for drafting, I made one of every kind of possible mistake that you can make just once, and I didn't repeat them, but throughout my drafting, there was one of every kind of mistake, and it was, well, maybe hundreds of different notes on my assignment, okay? But I didn't panic. I incorporated, and I was able to pass the drafting assessment on the first run, and you can do the same, hopefully. Strategy number 5, assessments have a higher threshold for passing than the final exams do at the end of PLTC. Therefore, when you have an assessment coming up, the majority of your time and energy should be going into those assessments. So you have time at the end. You have about a week to study for the final exams, And if you followed my first tip, then you should be ahead of the game because, you're just reviewing, you're not reading for the first time. So keep up with your readings, by the way. Practice the advocacy assessments in front of a video or the mirror at least 5 to 6 times, as many times as you possibly can. Do it in front of others, whatever the rules allow. Stick within the rules always. Critique yourself, correct it, go again. Be confident, fake it if you have to. And if you get derailed, as many will, I'm talking good, smart, intellectual people that I really admired, they got derailed on these assessments and assignments. And I watched it because you're against somebody, right? It's advocacy and it's confrontational. But if you get derailed, you lose your place, you fail to make your point, okay, just move past it. Many will do that. Pick it up, right back up as if you didn't get derailed. So even if you're in the middle of a sentence and you're like, I am, this other thing, just move on. Go to the next bullet point in your notes because you're allowed notes and just move on as if you never made the mistake at all. So get your points. Focus on point scoring. They give you a checklist of points. Make sure you're checking off these checkpoints in the checklist. Grade yourself. Would you have passed? No? Okay, then fix it. If you don't understand what an item on the grading checklist means, like you don't know whether you've earned those points, then rewatch the instructional video to the same and reach out, if you have to, the instructor for clarification. Like, what does it mean that you want me to act professionally during this advocacy? What are you talking about? What does it mean when you want me to make small talk during the interview? That's an actual thing during the interview assessment. Okay, strategy number 6. For the final week of reading, before the 2 exams, I set aside 15-hour days for this. Every single day, 15-hour days. I stayed at home. I did most of my PLTC in the office because it's a great work environment, and I could get help if I needed on reading assignments, things that weren't graded, to a limited extent. I could ask for clarification in the reading materials, basically. But for studying for the final exams, you only get one chance, so I need much more time than my office is actually open. So I stayed at home, 15-hour days, no exception, because you only get one chance to pass these PLTCs, basically other than if you fail and retake it, and then you don't get any other chance. I didn't want any of that. I wanted to pass the first time, so 15-hour days is what I set aside for reading the material before those final 2 exams, which are quite difficult. So whatever you read on the internet from the past may not apply to the present. Keep in mind they've gotten more difficult. If you need to interrupt the 15 hours, say for doctor's appointments, then make it up. Same day if possible. Cut into your sleep if you have to. Record audio of the material if it helps. Just read the material out loud. Play it back on some kind of audio. You could play it in your headphones while you're grocery shopping, driving, feeding your kid, whatever you need to do. Of course, only when it's safe and prudent to do so. Disclaimer. Prioritize passing these exams because you do not want to do them again. I did not want to. They're terrible in terms of stress. You will do best with a general awareness of what is in the material. For example, not an example of a question, actual question, just an example of material. Know what an amalgamation is, company law, right? And the forms of it. Long form, short form, court approved. When would it be useful? Where does it apply? When do they need an amalgamation? These basic concepts for, this particular subject. And then know where to find more info on it quickly should the question dig deeper. So the question's more likely going to give you a scenario that goes a little bit deeper than general knowledge. Okay, well, amalgamations are in the first part of the company law materials, and you know exactly how to get there and find the answer you need. And since you already have a general knowledge, you can hone in on the specific stuff that you need to answer the question with confidence. Again, these are all my strategies. Lots of different ways to pass this. I'm just telling you what works for me. Okay, so number 7, seventh strategy, last strategy in this video is that I personally did not use indices. People will provide you indices and cans if you make even general acquaintances in your PLTC class, then you should have general access to these materials. But the indices I found were just too narrow, the fine print, like you can't really dig through them. I didn't like them. However, cans, which is a Canadian term for outlines, were very useful for me during the reading week because it gives me something to hone in on when I'm doing a recap, doing my review study, because it's not the first time I've read this material. So these were less helpful in the exams themselves because the exams typically dig a little bit deeper than the outline does on most of the questions. Many of the questions, really. Yeah, so if I didn't know the answer already when I'm taking the exam, then I would usually go straight to the materials because it's the quickest way to get the full and complete picture of what I'm digging into. Another bonus tip for you, not number 8, just a bonus tip. I separated each subject into its own binder for the final exams. So, and these binders would start with the cans, and then they would have the actual reading material from the PLTC, and maybe even some supplemental material if I thought it might be useful, or stuff from the activities that we did in class, stuff from the quizzes and things that you do in class. All that's in its own binder. One for company, one for real estate, one for civil litigation, so that the exams are structured in a way so that they're fairly sequential, one area of law at a time. Therefore, I found this was really helpful. I'm done with real estate, throw that binder to the side, grab the binder on the next subject, whatever it might be. Okay. So these are 7 strategies that I use to be a first-time PLTC passer. They may just be applicable to me, but hopefully you can get some of this information and review it and consider whether or not it would be useful to you. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me personally. I will not provide any notes. I never have. I didn't for the NCA because I think you're better off just getting the stuff for yourself. So talk to your classmates if you're trying to get notes or something like that. I won't provide it. But if you have questions on specific material or strategies, I love helping out any way I can. So don't hesitate. Best of luck on your exams.